All right, I'm here with Ian, the founder of BuildFire. Ian, how you doing today?
Doing great. It's good to be with you.
Yeah, likewise. For people that may not know you, do you want to give a brief introduction of yourself?
Yeah, my name's Ian Blair. Been a serial entrepreneur my whole life. Started off selling or with lemonade stands when I was a kid, selling golf balls on eBay in high school, and then learned a lot about internet marketing and building websites. And then the App Store was the hot thing when I was in college. The iPhone 4S had just come out. Siri was brand new. People were making millions in the App Store. And then apps were the hot thing. So how do I build these for businesses? And started actually, well, it's probably worth mentioning this. So I started off as a white labeler of Bizness Apps, which was your company.
Yeah, this is
So,
going to be an interesting podcast, Ian, because I'm thinking, usually I'd ask, what does BuildFire do? How'd you get the idea?
yeah.
But I had a similar company, so I already know the answers to those things.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you probably know better than most people. So yeah, I actually started off selling mobile apps, being a white label reseller of Business Apps, Andrew's company, and sold a couple hundred apps. And then, realized we wanted to go off and build our own technology platform and make it a little bit more extensible. So that was the kind of the genesis of BuildFire. And then, spent a little over 10 years building that company and published over 15,000 apps to the App Store. And now we're 2 months after we've sold it now, and
Yeah.
on to my next company, which is called Laundry Sauce, which is essentially like designer laundry detergent. You can somewhat think of it as like Tom Ford meets Tide, and create a really elevated experience. Been doing that for a little over 3 years now, and it's just grown like an absolute rocket ship. And it's very fun to be focused on e-commerce because that's really like I think where my passion lies is just more on the internet marketing side than building really complicated software.
Right on. What a story in like 2 minutes. That was probably the best initial intro I've done. Let's bring it back. Let's start with BuildFire in the beginning. Do you remember how you got your first customer? I don't think I've ever asked you this, but I'm curious.
So I think when you're starting companies, you always need partners. I mean, there's some people that can just do it totally on their own, but I think you build much better companies with partners. And the guy that I started it with, he was Salesforce. So he had like kind of a warm network that he went out to, and we started making sales. And then once you start to have like enough customer wins, like bringing in other customers becomes a lot easier because you have a track record and then you get word of mouth. So that was really how we got started. It was really my business partner's warm network.
Nice. What vertical did you start with?
So we started selling into churches, and
That was a good vertical. That
yeah,
was a great vertical.
100%. Mainly because like they kind of all like follow the same format. Because the initial business idea was like, how do we build like templated mobile apps like over and over? And you need to go after a particular vertical in order to do that. And churches, had a massive need for this. They were willing to pay for it, and then we could essentially just take these templates and clone it. And that was kind of the world that my business partner was, heavily involved in. And there's also a great network effect there, and it was a really strong market to get started in. And then, once we had our own technology, that's kind of when we expanded out into selling to more businesses.
Nice. I remember schools and churches were probably the top markets that I worked in. And then I started in restaurants. So a
Okay.
little different. I don't know if you ever did this, but we would cold call restaurants when the iPhone was just new, and we'd say, "Hey, do you need an app?" They'd say like, "Hey, what the hell? Like appetizers? What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
Does
I
it?
think I mean, you were probably the first to market with this, which is nuts. And I think restaurants were really strong early on. I think it was, I don't know. There's such a hype around it. I feel like, and it kind of felt like everything was going to go towards apps. I mean, ultimately it didn't. Apps became still a little bit more like specialized. But I think you rode a pretty good wave.
100%. We made apps for like attorneys and stuff. They don't need mobile apps. But hey, we'll happily make them. All right, let's move to the point where you got your own software platform. Tell me about the initial build for that. How long did it take? What like features did it have to have? What was like the big differentiator? I think I know the answer.
Well, first, it just started off with like replicating the features that our customers were using on essentially like on your platform, right? So that was like kind of step one. Then we could migrate them off, and then once we had that, then we could kind of expand the feature set. And kind of like V1 of the platform was just truly that. It's like, how do we just replicate what you have? And then had V2 of the platform where we kind of created like a different architecture where it was like much more modular, kind of like the WordPress of mobile apps where you could have these, each feature in the app was like a modular unit of functionality you kind of pick and choose from, like Lego pieces for your app. And then
Uh,
you made it so you could customize it and add additional ones. But I think like V1 of our platform probably took us almost a year to build. And then like as you guys are adding more features, like we had to kind of catch up to those as well.
we
Uh,
were in such like a R&D like battle. It was never
yeah,
ending, just new feature, new feature. What you guys would always beat us on was the custom modules. Didn't
yeah.
have that.
I mean, that was the kind of our big selling point. But then, I mean, it adds a whole layer of complexity as well. So, one thing that I've learned is like simple systems scale. And, when you have to add tons and tons of new features, it just becomes like this endless treadmill that you're on. And then,
Yeah.
you somewhat get a bit of technical debt just because it's a larger system to maintain because you're kind of catering to all these other customers.
100%. What do you think your favorite moment building that company was? Or maybe the biggest learning or just something that comes to mind that you'll never forget?
Probably when we moved into our 32nd floor office in downtown San Diego. So it's one of the tallest office buildings in all of California, actually. We were 2 floors from the top, had panoramic views of the city. And before, we were on the 28th floor and then we were like all crammed in, so it kind of just felt like the company is growing. And, when you get to move into a nicer space, I mean, it's a very physical, like representation of like how, we're growing as a company. It gets everyone excited. And the views were kind of, second to none. So that was a very cool moment, especially because we started off like working from home, then to a shared office space. Then we got our first office, like that was cool. Then we got a really nice office, like that was really sweet.
Nice. My first office was in Chico. It was like one just studio room. We had like 8 guys in there. It was not fun.
Yeah, I mean, I started this when I was living in a house with 11 guys. So in
Were
college.
you in college? What? Were you a
Yeah.
senior? Were you?
I started it, I think it was really like second semester junior year is when like we really got started with it. And then I had summer break. And then I had to come back to finish senior year. Fortunately, I graduated a semester early, but as soon as like I had 4 months off just to work on the business and it was growing and I don't know, we probably got it to like 20, 30,000 a month in recurring revenue.
Nice.
And yeah, I came back for senior year. I was like, why the hell am I still in school? And like I called up my parents. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna drop out. And I was just expecting them to be like, you have to finish this. I wanted like them to basically tell me I had to do it.
Right.
And they didn't. And then I was like, fuck, all right, I'll finish it anyways.
Nice.
In
You're
hindsight,
smart.
well, it didn't matter. I think, college is just less and less relevant today. And I don't think it's getting any better with AI and just how much the knowledge is essentially just democratized on the internet. You can learn anything on YouTube at this point. Like unless you have a highly specialized skill, like becoming a nurse or a doctor, things like that. Like that's what you need to go to school for. But business, marketing.
No, I didn't even learn anything, even though I majored in business marketing. But it was fun. I always say you learn more outside the classroom than actually in it.
No doubt. I mean, there's a couple of good classes like finance, accounting, business law, but there's only really like, I don't know, 5 to 10 tactical classes where you can really learn stuff. Other than that, it's just more or less the experience.
I would agree with that. Well, let's move into the acquisition part. What made you want to
Yeah.
sell BuildFire?
So, yeah, when you raise capital, I mean, at a certain point, you have to return capital to shareholders. Kind of around the 10-year mark, they're looking for liquidity. So, that was certainly, part of the impetus. And then, my e-commerce project, which was like a side project, became, increasingly bigger and bigger. So you need to focus on that. So, the fact
Can't
that
do both.
yeah. So,
Can't
I
do
mean,
both.
I had to like hunker down and run 2 businesses. You're working, 60, 80 hours a week. But that's what I'm, willing to sign up for. I mean, that's why I got started early in life. So it was just kind of like ready for this journey to come to an end. And, I had another company I wanted to focus on. So just kind of all those factors coming together. And yeah, it kind of creates like unique situation. Because sometimes when you get bought, like people want you to stick around for 2 or 3 years and have an earn out and stuff. So you're kind of looking for a more specific buyer as well.
Yeah, 100%. Tell me about the process, the acquisition process. What were your initial thoughts? How did it go? Give
Yeah.
me the 60-second version, we could pull back a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like a long journey from the moment you're like, hey, I'm going to sell this to when we actually got it sold, or it was much longer than I had anticipated. And we started, and I also think like macro has a big part to play in it as well, because like this is when interest rates are getting cranked up, software multiples are getting cranked down. So I think it just became like an increasingly difficult time to sell a company, because your valuation expectations might be one thing, when, what the market has been like the last 12 months versus like what it's going towards. So we started working with an investment bank early on, and unfortunately did not get a transaction across the finish line. And then you're kind of at square one again. And like, that's kind of the tough part about selling your business is, you never know, like, when you're doing management calls, like, is this going to be the buyer? Is this one actually going to go over the finish line? Are we going to get an offer? And so forth. So kind of went through that process, realized it was a bit, difficult. And then, ultimately ended up working with you guys, and you guys made it a hell of a lot easier.
100%. Who'd you work with on the Acquire team, and how was that experience?
Well, I got to work directly with you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was a big selling point. The fact that you knew our business inside and out, you knew the market, you knew who the buyers could be. That was definitely one of the primary reasons why I wanted to work with you. And then I also thought it'd be, kind of nostalgic, bring it full circle too.
Yeah, 100%. I enjoyed this transaction a lot because, we literally had very, very similar businesses. And yeah, I did know a good amount of buyers that could be interested. Tell me about just the process, like when you found the buyer you ended up moving forward with. What stood out about them? How was their process? How was due diligence?
Yeah. Well, I think they had a really solid approach, and I think part of it is like we were well prepared from the due diligence side. You guys had some amazing materials that we could essentially use as templates to build up the sim and the data room, and I think it made it a lot easier for the buyer to come to a conclusion on whether or not they should buy it. And they made it pretty easy on us. It was only a 30-day due diligence process. They kind of put their money where their mouth is, and they have, here's all the here's what we need to get through in week 1. And if we get through this, we get on to week 2, and these are the things that we need. And then we get to week 3. And then, you get to the asset purchase agreement. You work through legal with that. Like, they were pretty straightforward, and, they didn't really throw too many curveballs at us. And it was quite nice working with them.
Nice. Tell me about, actually closing the transaction. Did you have any hiccups in that part? I know we helped a little bit with SRS Acquium. Or no, you went, no escrow, correct? Because you had
we did no
relationship.
escrow.
That's right.
Yeah. I think there was a sense of trust. But I transferred everything over, and we're sharing screens on the last day, and then they share their screen, and they got the wire pulled up, and they're like, send.
Nice.
That felt pretty good. I think selling your business is always going to be like an emotionally stressful process. Like, there's a lot at stake. And yeah, I mean, the couple days before, the deal's not done until it's done. Like I would skydive a lot, and when I'm in air under canopy, it's like, the skydive's not over till I'm on the ground.
Yeah.
It's nice parakeet above your head, and you're coming down, but the skydive's not over till you're on the ground. In the same way, the business transaction's not over until the wire's in the bank account.
100%. I've seen it go the other way, and it's not fun when that happens.
Yeah, huge emotional letdown if it fell apart in the last hours.
Oh, it's the worst. If you can go back in time and give yourself, 3 pieces of advice as you're going through your acquisition, what do you think that'd be?
I would have sold sooner.
I mean, everyone would have done that.
Yeah. I mean, in 2020, 2021, we had some serious tailwinds. I mean, our signups were, off the charts. We had so much inbound traffic. We were hitting all of our sales records. And the whole world was, basically going digital. You can look at the stock prices of, public companies such as like Zoom. I mean, they were on a huge high.
Yeah.
And they've come down since. So, I think we kind of missed that timing. So, kind of one of the lessons that I'll take moving forward is, when things are like really hot and frothy, and, the future's looking bright, I mean, that's really the time that you want to sell. So I wish, we had made those moves at the time. So that's one thing. I think, there's hindsight's always 2020. There's certain, you have some great employees, you have some employees that are not so great. And, getting more of those right than wrong, would obviously change the trajectory a bit.
Was there any parts that surprised you about maybe the due diligence process? Yours was fast. It was only like 30 days. So I don't know if you happen to share, but like, hey, put together this in advance or
I think if you have a good data infrastructure and you use like the right tools, it's pretty easy to audit these companies, because you have essentially, all your recurring revenue in one system, and then you can, plug it into other reporting tools where you can kind of like easily get a sense for what the numbers are doing. There's not like a whole lot of like manual accounting. So, yeah, I mean, if you're on the right tech stack, it makes things a hell of a lot easier.
Nice. You do anything to celebrate? Like you went on vacation? Like what'd you do?
Yeah, so I wanted to go on this trip for quite some time. So basically, as soon as we sold the company, I started planning a trip to Indonesia. Wanted to go on a surf trip out there for a long time. So I made my way out to the Mentawais and spent 17 days out surfing there. And basically the middle of nowhere, it feels like the opposite side of the planet, and absolutely scored, got the best waves of my life. Got to hang out with surfing legend Josh Kerr. He was staying on the island with us. At most, there was 10 of us, and it got down to only 4 of us at one point, and that was for 17 days, and just got some unbelievable waves. So that's still absolutely burned into my memory because I just got back a couple weeks ago.
Is that where Chopu is?
Chopu's in Tahiti.
Tahiti, okay.
I've been to Fiji, and I've seen Cloudbreak, which is similar to Chopu. I've seen that. 25, 30 foot plus, one of the biggest swells to ever hit Fiji. And I happened to be there for that. And then even when I was in Indo, it was the biggest swell of the year. And it just came late. So been pretty fortunate with seeing some pretty big swells.
Right on. Well, dude, what are you doing now? Tell me about laundry sauce.
Yeah. So laundry sauce, I'm just all in on e-commerce. I think, my skill set, like as an entrepreneur, has always been around marketing, right? And I wanted to essentially create a business where like that is the primary lever of growth. So kind of my general thesis is like, how do you take like a non-discretionary consumer good that has high lifetime value, that you can acquire a ton of customers at scale through paid media, and have something that's like relatively simple to produce, because I knew I didn't want to be back in the whole like R&D world where you have to spend hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to develop new products. How can you it is somewhat like I guess in e-commerce in this case, like how do you leverage like existing manufacturing infrastructure, great suppliers that can help you build a product, and like they're also carrying some of the investment along with you and bringing technical expertise, and we're essentially been like the brand layer on top of this product category. I mean, I think we've done a lot, to create this kind of elevated, experience for laundry, which like no one really has done, and it's kind of obvious in hindsight. But there's kind of this like wide open market, and it's scaled to 8 figures in the first like year and a half. So it's
damn,
that's the level of growth.
Good for you, man. Well, dude, excited to see how far you take this one. I'm excited. And it was fun building next to you, 2 companies doing similar things. So glad I get to be a small part of your success story.
Yeah. And building a B2C company is quite interesting, because if you're like $100 million B2C company, like everyone in America knows who you are. If you're $100 million like B2B company, no one knows who you are.
Yeah. It's true.
So, like I'm just the other day, I walked into a coffee shop and I had my laundry sauce shirt on, and, the barista was like, "Oh, like, no way. Like, do you work for laundry sauce? Like, I love it. Like I have all the fragrances."
Yeah. There was 2 people that acquired that, had heard of your brand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's awesome.
That's one of the fun aspects of working in consumer rather than in B2B.
Definitely. Well, yeah, that's all I got. Again, rooting for you all the way. Excited for this one to be, 100 times bigger than anything you've done. So, keep building. If people want to, learn more about you or just get in touch, where can they find you online?
Yeah, best way to find me online is on Instagram. It's Ian Blair 44, and you'll see some, exotic cars, skydiving, surfing, snowboarding, and then some business tips along the way.
But I'll put that in the show notes. Ian, it's been a pleasure. Rooting for you, man.
All right, thanks for having me.